you can say Secure Docs Virtual Data Room, all signature documents. If you're thinking about kind of like how do I know which documents go in there? So typically the way that I define it when I'm talking to people, I said anything with a signature on it that's related to your company should go in a virtual data room. If it's locked in the CFO or CEO office, it means it's not for public consumption. Those documents should probably go in there. If it's locked in the general counsel office, those documents should probably go in there. If it's locked in the business development or corporate development office, those documents should probably go in there. And in operations, if you have sensitive client information that includes like their tax ID number, bank account numbers, credit card, those documents should probably go in there as well. When you look at Dropbox, really shouldn't include signature documents that relate to your company. It's primarily for editing documents and works in progress, and it's for all departments. It's when you need high productivity, you're working through things. It could be like a marketing communication piece, a presentation that that salespeople are working on. Really important things, the things that really fundamentally wouldn't affect the company too deeply if they were leaked. You know, even my presentation to you is not that significant. Some summary of other use case items. So these are kind of particular use cases. So think of a virtual Secure Docs virtual room. So our clients use it. We've had clients raise hundreds of millions of dollars using our system. So for fundraising, where you are having exposed very sensitive material out to people that are looking to invest, you know, tens of millions of dollars, they need to see that information. At the same time, you want to protect it from too much exposure. Certainly M&A. So as you get closer with a year or two of going through a merger and acquisition, you want to sell your company, starting to secure that information and locking it down and getting organized is a big deal. Partnerships, strategic partnerships, where you need to audit and know who provided what know-how to any kind of collaboration you're doing. You want to have an audit trail that says we provided these documents, this type of know-how and research. Certainly for audits with the outside accountants, your legal counsel, when you're working with legal counsel and kind of complete contracts and agreements and amendments, so they can always find them and they know what the latest addition is. Third-party consultants, certainly these folks should have restricted access, and you could argue with certain documents they only need view only. They don't need to own the documents. And certainly when you think about it, say if the consequences of a leak are high, then you should use a virtual data room. So even in marketing, where you think information like our cost of acquisition for a client using certain online channels, that doesn't seem like a big deal. It actually is a big deal. If a competitor got a hold of that information, they would say, wow, that is a very interesting way of acquiring a client, and they're doing it very profitably. We can follow this path. That can save them millions of dollars in terms of acquiring clients. Use Dropbox use cases, so certainly group collaboration, where you need lots of productivity, any project. And the real thing is that the real way to kind of weight it is to say if the collaboration benefit outweighs the consequences of a leak. Again, in terms of pricing, you know, we actually are very, when you look at us, if we have companies raising Series A, typically those companies don't have a lot of money, and so we try to work with them to help with them. We're very sensitive about entrepreneurs in particular, so you can call us. But typically it's $2,400 a year. It's a flat fee. There's no variable, and it allows for unlimited users and unlimited documents. Dropbox, there's a consumer which is extremely generous, which is 2 gigabytes for free. If you want 100 gigabytes, $999 a year. If you want to get a business edition, which does allow for more administration controls, and they are working on trying to restrict, I guess, how many folders you can share. It's unclear whether you can take the documents out of a folder and share them then. But they are trying to work on some elements of control around that. But that's $795 for 5 user, and then each additional user $125 a year. But you can see, even in the pricing models that have been developed here, that the use cases are very different, right? When you are going out for raising funds, you may have 20, 30, 40 users that need it, need access to that. With Dropbox, when you're talking about collaboration, you're usually talking about a small group of users that need to edit something. So again, this presentation is not about, you know, Secure Docs Virtual Data Room is a lot better than Dropbox. It really is like comparing a sedan with a truck. When identifying when it's appropriate to use one solution versus another. And so at this point, hopefully this has been helpful and educational to you. I want to open up for some questions.
Great. So one of the first questions that we asked, which is really interesting. It says, how does one utilize both a virtual data room and a collaboration tool in conjunction in the corporate environment, which
That's a great.
usually already includes network and network storage. So there are use
Yep.
cases for both. What, um, how would you use them
I,
both together?
actually, I would just say that you answered the question. You would use them together. So I would say actually in our case, I would probably say 80% of our customers have some type of collaboration solution that they use. And the real way that I delineate is very similar to what I said earlier, is that once the documents get a signature on them, that's what will go into a virtual data room. Once the documents, if the documents are extremely sensitive, like you have people in finance breaking down things like margins, or you have people signing off on audits and things like that, that's what should go in a virtual data room. While you're going through an editing process, a review process, or discussion or presentation, that's something you probably want to use. You could probably use in Dropbox. But once it becomes finalized and you can tell that it's sensitive, you can move it over into something like a virtual data room. It becomes part of your corporate record and your corporate history. And it's something that investors would want to see and outside parties when evaluating your company.
Okay.
So I guess the answer is you potentially and very likely need both. This is not an either or. It's a which would be more appropriate for which documents.
Yes, absolutely. And then there are a couple of questions about that that are speaking to Dropbox, that there are opportunities to get, more storage for referrals and that they have apps and all that. And I guess, and Albert, you can comment, I guess, on this. I guess as well, the point is that it's definitely there is room for both. There are a lot of great features that Dropbox has.
Dropbox does, and just again giving you kind of a different use case. If you think about it, one of the ways that Dropbox has really accelerated their penetration in the market is by having a freemium model, encouraging people to share folders and information with others, and getting additional storage credit for doing that. So if you think about it, Dropbox is fundamentally designed to encourage you to share your folders with other people. Secure docs and virtual data rooms in general are designed to secure that information. There is no benefit, you don't get additional storage space because you've shared folders with other people and things like that. What you get is security around those spaces. So you can see again, it really has to do with which car you want to drive and what's carried inside those cars. How sensitive are those documents? If you're just sharing pictures and you're just sharing, what your Christmas newsletter, then Dropbox is probably fine. It's not going to hurt your company. But if you're sharing your employee information or your capitalization table, Dropbox is probably not fine for that.
Um, and then I have another question that says, it's really interesting. This is a good question. It says, so do you automatically enter into a non-disclosure agreement when you enter a virtual data room?
So and I will speak to ours. So the non-disclosure agreement, firstly, it's editable. And when you enter the data room, at least with our clients, they edit it according to what their needs are. But yes, it is an electronic signature, and it's a binding electronic signature based on whatever NDAs your company has deemed necessary when allowing people to enter. So we have had some companies that have elected to severely limit the scope of the NDA, or just say, we're giving you access to this, and that's what the electric signature is. But most clients know that the information here is sensitive, and so what they do is they utilize the NDA as a binding NDA. It saves them a bunch of time. It gives them a binding record of people that have signed into this.
Great. And I have a lot of questions here, so I'm trying to just sort through them. So I have somebody in here that said, they're part of an architecture firm and they're wondering how, a virtual data room would work for them if they have several different clients. How would they use that with multiple clients? And I guess, once again, you can speak to our solution.
Yeah, I will tell you, like with our solution, and again, I don't know enough about architecture to know how sensitive your information is, and I know this sounds funny, but it's potential that Dropbox is just fine for using architectural communication and collaboration. But if there are things really sensitive, the way it would work, at least in our system, is pretty easy. You would create a folder maybe with your client's name on it, and then you would create a role that had the client's role on it and give them access to that folder. So when they logged in the data room, they would immediately come in, they would see the documents that are in there, and they could open them up. And you could, within that folder, you could have all kinds of subfolders, contracts, contractors, sketches, designs, whatever it is, so they could be seeing those things.
Okay, great. And I'm going to take one more question here. I'm going to kind of look through this and see what we have. Um, um, there's a lot of great questions. I just want to comment that we're getting a lot of questions in that are very specific questions to what the individual is asking, and we can address all of those with you via email after the presentation. I'm trying to keep it to more general stuff. So this question is just said, just about, when using virtual data rooms, and once again, this is going to be really specific to SecureDocs because that's the only thing we can speak of, is how do they know this is more secure, and specifically, where is data stored and what type of, is it redundant and backed up?
Yeah. So I wouldn't want anyone to speak for us, but I can, so I can't speak to the other major carriers. I can talk to you about, what we do. So two things, on our website, and this is why I didn't cover this very closely. It's very standard for people to have like 256-bit encryption. We have two-factor authentication when people come in here. That's if you want to get. There's a lot of nitty-gritty in terms of security, and you can certainly look at our website about that. We have, encryption in REST and in transit and all these different things and different types of encryption. But when you get down to it, the real way that people get compromised is through malware that tracks people's usernames and passwords. And so the number one security element you're going to look for in any solution, and Dropbox has this, but a lot of virtual data rooms don't, is two-factor authentication, which means that when someone logs in from a new computer, they have to enter a text code that gets sent to your phone. And that is one thing that we incorporated because it is the number one way that when you hear about all the leaks that have happened when China has hacked into various organizations, they've done it through malware where they stole people's usernames and passwords. And so you want to look for two-factor authentication. So that has to do with security. In terms of redundancy, we have two failover systems. So we have two, our stuff is housed in SAS 70 certified data centers, and we have two of them. And then in addition, we have a tertiary site where the data is failed over to as well. So we basically have three different locations where the data is stored and secured.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so, and I have, for those of you, this is the last question we're going to take. We wanted to wrap up at about 10:50 today. There are some more questions that are coming in. Some of them are around security. Some of them are pretty specific. So what we're going to do is go ahead and read these afterwards and email you. And of course, Albert is going to give you his contact information, and you're welcome to email him any questions. I want to keep this general, and I think some things are pretty specific here. So we'll be sure to get back to you with more of that information. But thank you so much for your participation today. There is a survey when you exit the webinar, so please feel free to fill that out, and please feel free to email Albert or myself. You'll be getting a follow-up email from me as well with any different additional questions you may have. And thank you, Albert, for taking the time today. Yes.
That's great. Can I make a request to the audience?
Sure.
We like our presentations to be educational, so I hope that you took me at my word where I said this is not meant to be a presentation to tell you that Dropbox is bad. It's not bad. It's good. It's really a factor of trying to make sure you understand the right use cases for the different products. Along those lines, I would be grateful or interested in hearing what other types of questions or about things like virtual data rooms, things like that, that would be helpful or interesting for you to hear about, because we try to make our webinars educational. So we've had topics on how to raise funding, we've had topics on how to choose a lawyer, we've had topics on how to leverage your intellectual property to gain funding. So we do a lot of different educational webinars, and I'd be very, very curious if any of you had any ideas about other kinds of things you'd like to hear about. We could even do different types of virtual data rooms and what the pros and cons are of each. Again, those are a little bit tricky because obviously we sell one, so we'll probably have something that will be a little bit slanted towards ours, but we try to make them educational. And so we'd love to hear other ideas that you have that would be very helpful and interesting in helping you move your business forward. So if you could add that in, that would be terrific and helpful to us. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day. And thank you for sticking through us with the audio glitches today. And have a great Tuesday. Bye bye.